Was the dispersion at Babel a real event?
Well, the first thing you should do is establish that the Bible is the authority. Once you've established that the Bible is the authority, that's when you can dive into the Scriptures and take a look and see what the Bible's actually talking about when it talks about the Tower of Babel, or more appropriately, Babel, as the Hebrew tongue would put it. One of the things that I would do is dispel one of the myths right off the bat. Some people have said, well, hold on a second here. You know, why is God being so mean that He would come down and He would judge these innocent people and confuse their languages? Well, if you jump back to Genesis 9:1, when Noah and his family first came off the ark, the Lord blessed Noah and his sons and their families, and He said, hey, spread out and fill the earth. What happened at the Tower of Babel, if you jump to Genesis chapter 11, verse 4, it says that they said, hey, we don't want to be scattered. So they came together and they wanted to build a tower so they wouldn't be spread out about the earth and to fill the earth. So what happens when you defy the Lord? Well, He comes down and He steps in. So the Lord wasn't being an ogre in that sense. What He was doing is He was stepping in to fulfill what should have been done. Another thing you could do is you can explain when the Tower of Babel was. Now, the Scripture is not straightforward when the Tower of Babel was, but if we look at some of the chronologists, for example, Archbishop James Ussher, who is one of the most popular chronologists, he did his chronology in the 1600s, and he even had his dates appear in the King James Bible for several hundred years. He places the Tower of Babel 106 years after the flood. By our common dating system, that would have been about 2242 BC. Now, whether that's accurate or not, I'm not exactly certain, but let's just assume for a moment that that was correct. Now, as soon as we would assume that, some people say, hold on a second, Bodie, what about all those languages? There's somewhere in the neighborhood of just under 7,000 languages in the world today. Are you saying that 8 people came off the ark and in 106 years there was about 7,000 languages? Well, no, I'm not saying that at all. Actually, linguists and people who've studied these languages, what they've done is they've looked at them and they've grouped them into language families. For example, the Latin-based language family has Italian, it has Romanian, it has French, it has Spanish, it even has some English in there as well. Of course, English also has a Germanic root, which is why it's a little bit different than some of these other languages. But what they've done is they've taken these various languages and they've narrowed it down to no more than 94 language families. Now, to me, that was exciting because if you look at Genesis chapter 10 and you add up all the various families that came out of there with a new language, you get no less than 78. There's actually more than that. We're just not certain exactly how many there were. So at that point, hey, that's a great confirmation of what the Scriptures are really teaching. Now, this is just a tip of the iceberg. I want to encourage you to take a look at the New Answers book, volume 2. There's a chapter specifically on the Tower of Babel, indicating that it is a real event. I want to encourage you to take a look at that and find out a little bit more.